morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today, and as I always start the webinar for today, I am going to talk customer experience. So I'm going to share a slide. I'm just going to show you all the points we're going to be chatting about. The whole idea is that we discuss some ideas for things you can look for in your calls that would give you an indication of what your customer experience is all about. It's something that I'm quite passionate about. Like Rod said, my whole background is all about quality assurance, but including the impact on your customer and how to understand the insights that you've got from your customer and what they are saying on your recordings. So with that, I'm quickly just going to share firstly just my agenda slide. For purposes of sharing, I'm also just going to stop my video quickly, just so that we have a clear indication and you can see a good quality. Rod, if you can please just quickly confirm, can you see the PDF in front of you?
Confirmed, go ahead.
Excellent. So what I just wanted to share, so you've got an idea what we're going to be discussing today, is there's two things when we talk quality or customer experience, CX. Two things. The first is how fast and how well am I serving my customer? So we talk speed. The second thing is then quality. So when I help them, do I resolve it the first time around? So what I'm going to show you today is using speech analytics as a tool. And obviously I'm going to show you by means of in the Callbi tool, what are the types of things that you now start looking for? Specifically for speed, and I'm going to start there. Firstly, how do I identify if there is unnecessary long dead air or silent time on my call? Which obviously from a customer experience perspective would mean there was a need to wait. You weren't as quick or as fast as I expected you to be. With that, then also, I'm going to show you to understand if there is a need for unnecessary transfers and holds. Now, this would speak to an inefficient process. Obviously, as a customer, when you phone into the call center, you're hoping that from the first person who answers that call, that they are able to resolve your issue and resolve it quickly. So I'm going to show you just how we can have insights into this to see if you've got unnecessary hold and transfer. We will then go into the customer experience side, so the quality side. How can we identify potential non-resolution? Also picking up any negative sentiment. What is our customer saying? And isolating those calls from thousands of calls to understand where customers are unhappy. We'll also just touch a bit on identifying bad audio or line quality. Actually quite interesting, something we see lately quite a lot with agents working from home. Also then potentially dropped calls, looking at call drivers, and also looking if your agents are using soft skills. So with that, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to share my Callbi screen, and I'm going to chat you and show you by means of demonstrating all these different things that we are looking for. Just quickly just selecting the right screen to share. Perfect. Again, Rod, if you can just confirm again that you can see my screen.
Confirm I see your screen.
Perfect. So firstly, just again, I am aware that some of the audience members might probably have not yet seen Callbi. So just before I jump into building queries and showing you reports, I'm just going to take a quick step back. Just going to give you a quick overview, any speech-to-text platform, but specifically Callbi, what it does. So what you do, you will upload your audio recordings. So it is your spoken conversation, all of your touch points, interactions between your agents and your customers. Those call recordings then gets transcribed into a written document. So that's what we call speech into text. So what you'll see is you will have a list available of all your calls. And as you can see in front of you, in this demo that I'm showing you, there's 127 calls. Obviously, this can go up to millions of calls. You will have all of these calls. You can also attach additional information as part of the call when you load it. Anything, for instance, a call outcome, if you're interested in looking at sales or types of call drivers, customer phone numbers, you can attach additional data that will help you identify specific groups of calls. In this then, you then also have, when you click on any of these calls, like I've said, you now have a written document, a text transcript of the actual conversation that happened on that recording. Now, the beauty of this is because you now have text format, you can build what we call a query. And I'm going to show you how easy it is to build a query on some of these examples. But you can now go say, instead of needing to listen to hours of recording to find if someone said something or did not say something, you can build a search query to look for the presence of a certain word. So it's as easy like Control F or go into Word, search for a text word, and it will then pick up across millions of your interactions where that specific word or words are present or where it is not present. Perfect. So with that, I'm going to go into, now that you see on the call list and how easy it is, what I'm quickly going to show you is just when we do build queries, how easy it's also just to build your query. And then I'm going to go into actual details of what we will look for customer experience. On the query, very easy on your left, you'll see when we go here, you'll have a list of all your queries that's been built. Like Rod said, we make or want to make speech analytics easy. So very friendly user interface. To add any new query, any new thing you're searching for, you simply click on the plus sign. In here, as basic as simply just adding the words or phrases that you are looking for across all of your recordings. So I'm just doing this as demo now. I'm going to show you actual real queries. The next thing that you've got the ability of doing is you can also specify whether you're looking for that word or phrases to have been said by anyone, either your agent or your customer, or should it have only been the agent who said it or only the client. Now, this becomes very relevant, especially in your custom experience queries, and I'll show you, where you're not so much worried about certain things the agent might be saying, but if the customer says certain things related to negative sentiment, you only want to pick up where the client has said that. And then you can also just set your proximity where you've got more than one word. You can look how close to each other those words should be found in your script. Now, I'm not going to bore you too much with the actual building out and how it works. I want to take you into actual queries and actual things that we will look for. So the first thing just on the agenda, just quickly to refresh your mind, was looking at speed. How efficiently and fast am I serving my customer? Now, the very first thing I'm going to show you is without building a query, Callbi's got the capability and functionality built in that for each of your audio recordings that you upload, firstly, it calculates the total duration of that recording, so from start until end of the recording. Secondly, what it then does, it calculates what part of that recording was there an actual conversation happening. Because remember, it does speech to text. Now, the difference between the two, the difference between your audio recording and your conversation duration is your actual dead air or the time when no one was speaking. This will include transfer time, hold time, music playing, or just dead silence from any part. Now, that is expressed as a percentage silence on your recording. Further, it then also just splits out what part of your silence was at the end of your recording. So after the conversation ended, but the agent did not necessarily end the call. Now, using this without building a query, I'm going to show you just in your dashboards, because in the dashboards is where you will end up. And I'm going to show you also how to easily build reports. But you can use any of the information available to build reporting. Now, what I've done in this first example is using the time lost. We can now go pull an actual number of minutes lost across our audio recordings. Now, this shows you obviously where you see very high examples. And at the end, once I've taken you through all, I'm going to show you some actual stats from some of our clients where they've identified hours of time lost due to dead air. Now, the nice thing from this is from any of your cards, because you now know you've got potential dead air or high silent time, from here, when you click on any data point, it will take you into your list of calls with those high silences. So again, because you know now from your call list, very easy, you can go click, and from here, it will take you into that actual recording. Remember, when you play, all of these flat spots would be your silences. So that's how easy it is, just from hundreds, thousands of actual recordings, to identify where you're losing time, how much time are you losing due to dead air, but then to start investigating the reasons why you're losing so much time due to dead air. So with that, then I'm going to move on, because once you've identified silences and you start investigating, chances are you're going to identify that potentially it could be due to lots of transfers, lots of hold time. I'm going to show you how to build some queries to identify if there is a need for high transfers or hold. Now, the first thing I also just want to show you, on our help desk, we've got a help desk. If you click on the question mark, it takes you through to the Callbi help desk that looks like this. From here, we've got some very nice query examples, and that is what I'm going to show you today. So when you click Call and Custom Experience Insights, from here you can download. I'm going to open and show you. The document looks like this. Now in here, there are some ready, copy-paste ready queries that you can use to start building your queries. Now, the first thing for today that I wanted to show you is how to build a query that looks for an indication of a need to hold on that call. I'm quickly going to take you through to that spot. You'll see here is the actual query. I'm going to copy it, and I want to show you in Callbi how easy we can build that query. So I'm going to go into queries. I'm going to create a query, and I'm going to call this query hold time indicated. It's as easy as pasting. You'll see now that this query is created with various words and phrases. So what this in essence means is we are saying, go look through all of my audio transcripts, my text transcripts, where you find a match on any of these words or phrases. So you'll see here some examples is said by the agent, please hold the line, or give me a minute. So any of these words and phrases, and you can build it out. As you get more, as you add more, you can just add them. But this will now show you, once we've built this query, I just want to update my date. It will now search through all my recordings, and it will return a list of results of any calls where you picked up one of these. So that's firstly just by looking for an indication where the agent asked the client to please wait. This will show you a need for wait time. Now, once you've built your query, and I'm not going to go too much into the accuracy process, it is something we train as you go through. There is a whole process to ensure that your query is accurate and that you are comfortable with what your query is returning. But once you've done that, I'm just quickly going to save this query. You will then save your query is done. You will move into dashboards, and I'm going to show you how easy it is to create a new dashboard. I now want to see what percentage of my calls is there a need to hold. I give it a name, my graph. So hold time indicated. There's various graphs and reports you can select how to display your information in Callbi. In this case, I'm going to select a bar graph. You can group your information, and I'll show you the difference. For now, I want to see overall. I want to see a percentage of calls. Now, the next thing, you just simply filter to see the information you are interested in. In this case, I am looking for calls that matches my query for hold time indicated. And you'll see very easy from here, we now have a view that across probably an average of about 12-13% of our calls, there is a need for the customer to wait because the agent says, please hang on, or please hold, or please wait. Now, once again, from these calls, you simply click, it takes you to the call list, When you go to that specific call list, it takes you to the specific spot with the words matched from your query. So once again, as you now start deep diving, you start seeing the reasons for hold. Is it agent training, agent behavior, or is it a process issue where they must place on hold because they must phone someone else or they need to do something else? So similar to the hold query, you can also build a query that looks at transfers. I'm not going to build the query now, but that would, for instance, look for things like, would you mind if I transfer you? Or can you please transfer the call? Or any of those indications. And again, at the end, I'm going to show you some actual real stats, but where we've picked up with client call centers that more than 40% of their calls had a need for the call to be transferred. I always just put myself in the customer's shoes. Imagine being transferred 3 or 4 times on one call because one and second and a third agent is not able to resolve your issue. So that was the holds and the transfers. Next, what I'm quickly going to show you is I want to now move over into the customer experience. So how to identify, firstly, potential non-resolution. Obvious buzzword when we talk customer experience is first call resolution or actual issue resolution. Now, the beauty with having access to all of your conversations and everything, millions, thousands of conversations, is you can now go look across all of those conversations where there is a potential non-resolution. Again, I'm just going to take you, and I've already built the queries for you. 2 things that you can look for potential non-resolution. The first one is a need for a callback. Anything, for instance, I can't talk or please call me later. And again, you can look at this from 2 sides. Either it is from a customer perspective, so we know the agent is going to need to make another call, or from an agent perspective where the agent says, no, system is offline, call us later. So any of these will show you what percentage of your calls there will definitely be a follow-up call, whether it's outbound, inbound, and again in Callbi, dependent on your data, you can segregate and you can slice into your different types of calls. The second thing also then for non-resolution is actually looking for calls, and I want to show you the query, where there's any indication where someone says, I've been following up, I've been phoning all afternoon, or it's not the first time I'm calling. So anywhere where you pick up an indication of that. For instance, nobody can assist, nobody came back to me, any, and the possibilities are endless. You can build this query as far out as you need to. But this will again show you, using your query across your calls, and I've already created the cards. Firstly, we can see in the demo environment, 30% of our calls is going to result in a second call because we're picking up already in the conversation, there's a need for a callback. We can also see indication of non-resolution, very high one day, 53% of our calls. So this is once again for you to then start deep diving and understanding, and what is the reason? Why are our calls not resolving? Or why are our customers saying they're continuously phoning back? And it will drop you straight in, like I've shown you, into that spot in the conversation where that specific indication was picked up. So that was just then your non-resolution. The next that I want to show you again, just an example of picking up on any negative sentiment. I love this query because what it does, it helps you, instead of listening to a sample of calls, you can very quickly isolate just a group of calls with potential negative sentiment. So I'll show you on the negative sentiment query, again, our query examples. We've got 2 queries that you can use. The one is negative sentiment, which I will use in this demonstration. Let me just quickly copy it. But we also have a more serious query that will look for threat of taking action. For instance, I'm going to speak to my lawyer, or I'm going to go to social media, or I'm going to phone the ombudsman, etc. So using this once again across 100% of your calls, you simply just create that query. Like I've shown you, you paste it. This now starts looking Let me just quickly give it a name. This now looks anywhere where we pick up. And again, you can change this to say only if the client says it, or if anybody says it, dependent on your need. What are you looking for? But any of these words that would indicate an expression of negative sentiment. This will again allow you, and I'm going to just show you, let me just save the query quickly, how you can then have a list of calls. Instead of needing to listen to 100,000 calls for the month, you will end up with a list of probably 10, 15, dependent what you find, that somebody very quickly must just click and go listen to decide if there's something they need to do. So like I've shown you, once you've created your query, let me just save. I'm going to take you into dashboards. And I'm just quickly going to show you, we will create a card, negative sentiment, or potential negative sentiment, because somebody must just quickly go have a look. I'm going to say I want to see a list, and I want to see it per call. Again here, as easy as setting your filter. I want to see it for all calls that matches the query for negative sentiment. In here now, we've got simply just a list of 8 calls out of the demo environment, 124 calls that somebody must just click on. It will take them to the spot. I think you're wasting my time. Can you please call me back when you're better prepared? And it takes this person once a day, because your dashboards will auto update if you've set it on a rolling date. Every day as the calls get processed, it will flag. Somebody must just go click. They can make a note and they can take action. So that's just picking up negative sentiment or any indication of a customer not being happy or threatening with action. The next one I'm quickly just going to talk you through is then also picking up where you potentially have bad audio connection, volumes, headsets, network connection, or anything like that. This is actually something, like I said earlier, that we are picking up a lot with agents working from home or specific areas with agents. Again, because you can build a query that looks for certain words. You can build a query, and I'm going to show you just the details. I've already built it for you. But here you look on your calls for any indication, for instance, somebody saying hello, 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 so they're not hearing. Or they say it's a bad line, or you're breaking up, or I can't hear you. We've been cut off. There's a delay. All of these things that will indicate that somebody's not hearing someone else clearly on that recording. Again, using this, it will very quickly show you where you've got an issue. And in this case, here's an example of per agent where calls have got an indication of audio quality. You can sort these lists. We can see in this example that with this specific agent, there seems to be something we need to have a look at. What we found previously, lots of times it is headsets that could be an issue, or it could be work from home, network connectivity, or a system. So once again, and remember to bring it back into customer experience. This impacts your customer because chances are it is going to result in a repeat call. If I can't hear you, you can't hear me, I'm either going to misunderstand you or I'm going to need to phone back and I'm going to be frustrated. So once again, if you can solve this and you can reduce this, you improve your customer experience. The next thing, and it's my second last thing that I want to show, is also picking up where potentially a call was dropped, either by agent or by customer. Now we've got a query in here that looks at any call without an appropriate ending. So any conversation that didn't end, for instance, with a goodbye or thank you for your time, there wasn't a proper ending to that conversation. Now, when you start looking for these calls, it means that the conversation was abruptly ended in the midst of the conversation. So once again, you can build your query. I've already now shown you. Let's just go pull up the query quickly. So there isn't that closing. They're not saying bye. They're not saying have a nice day, etc. And again, in your dashboards, you can now have either a list per agent, or we can group. We can say we want to see per team. Where do we have issues? But immediately, let's say we want to see a line graph. So this is all customizable. You can change it as you need to. But again, here you will either identify agents, behavioral issue, system issues, or something that needs to be addressed, including where you need to contact your customer back in order to save that experience for the customer. Then just quickly going to touch on call drivers. So once you've identified long transfers, long holds, you can also look at proactively reducing customer contact with certain proactive campaigns. But in order to do that, you need to understand why your customers are phoning. Very easy, once again, an idea of how you can do this is building very simple queries that will identify the reason for the call. In this case, I'm going to build two queries. One that looks, for instance, collections related. So I'm phoning with regards to collections or collecting, or I owe money or something like that. Obviously, this could be any other example. But now we build a query that says call driver collections. I'm just going to save the query. I'm then going to build a second query that looks for a call driver for personal loans. Oops. Again, you'll add all of the words that will indicate that that was the reason for the call. Now, by building these, I'm quickly going to show you in the dashboard section. You can pull the information together. Currently, we use it in a scorecard, but you can now go say, I want to see my percentage of call drivers. What are the reasons? Using the scorecard format, under here, I'm quickly going to add those queries we've built for call drivers. What we can now see, and let me just again adjust the date. As we scroll to the right, and let's just group it by call center for now, or let's group it by organization. As we scroll to the right, we can see 11% of our calls, the call driver was for money, collections, etc. 25% of our calls, personal loans. So you will have all of these queries for all your different call drivers. Where you pick up reasons, your high call drivers, you can then consider if there are certain proactive campaigns you can do to contact these customers before they contact you. So that's just looking at call drivers. You can build these queries to identify whatever the customer was contacting you for. And then just the very last thing I'm quickly going to show you is just how do you look for soft skills? It's always, everybody always asks, but can you check for soft skills? I always take it back into how do we train our agents? When we train our agents, we don't tell them just go use soft skills. We give them certain words and certain things to use and to say that would indicate soft skills. So the first one I'm going to show you, and we've already built those queries. Let's go look for all the soft skills. Is the agent being professional and polite? Very easy. We can go look for words such as thank you, appreciate, polite words, friendly words, all of these, where you can see if the agent is actually using those words. Second thing that we look for a lot, and I want to take you back to the examples, is, for instance, empathy and acknowledgement. When the customer expresses something, is the agent acknowledging? And these are the things that we are teaching our agents to say. So you can go look if the agent says, I'm sorry for your inconvenience. I understand how you feel. I can only imagine, all of these things. So it is possible to go look. If you've trained your agent to use these phrases, you can look if they are actually using it. Attentive listening. Is your agent listening attentively? You can build a query because we teach the agents to repeat back. We ask them to confirm back. So you can build a query that looks for those words being expressed by your agent? Did they say, to check my understanding, can I just recap, etc.? So that's just, again, showing you using queries for soft skills. And I'm quickly going to take you into a soft skills dashboard. And within here, you can create various layouts. But on here, for instance, you can see per agent, what are they scoring under? Are they being polite? Are they expressing empathy? Are they doing the right introduction, etc., etc.? So that was everything I wanted to show you and take you through, all things related to customer and customer experience. Rod, do you want to take over with any of the questions that we've got?
No, I'm not letting you off the hook that easy, Henriette.
Yes.
We've had a couple of really great questions come in, if you can address them. The first one came in from Beverly Dixon. Beverly asked for just explain how we explain transcription accuracy versus query accuracy. How do we get up to 100% query accuracy when our transcription accuracy might be only 70 or 80%?
Okay.
Could
Perfect.
you expand on that? And then
Yes.
after that, I have a second question, which I'll pose to you.
Okay.
Over to you.
Definitely. Okay, thanks, Rod. So I'm not going to go into all the technical details. Once again, Rod always says, if you would like us just to have an individual discussion, we can do so. But what we look at with transcription accuracy versus query accuracy. So let's first quickly just touch on transcription accuracy. With any transcription tool, there's so many things that would influence your accuracy. Now, when we look at that, and I want to open up the transcript, but if you think about the human ear needing to listen and hear what is being said, just as much for the human ear, it is difficult sometimes to understand, to distinguish between words. It is also difficult for the speech engine to do so. Now, what you're going to find in your transcriptions is, for instance, words being transcribed differently. A good example we've got here is with one of our contact center clients is the word ID. When they ask for ID number, it transcribes as me number. We also had one of our other clients where when they ask, is the vehicle used for business use? Because of the way the agent pronounces it, the word gets transcribed as bedroom use. Now, when we talk query accuracy, because we know you're going to find these anomalies in your transcript, there is no such thing as 100% accurate transcription in the market. It doesn't exist. But you know you're going to find these, what we call variances. We place focus on when you build your query. And I'm going to show you. So when you build your query, and let's use the example of, is the business being the vehicle used for business use, but it gets transcribed as bedroom use. We've got a whole process we go through that you check, you manually verify a sample of calls. Whenever you find these anomalies, these different ways in which it is transcribed, you simply just add those variances in your query. So for instance, we'll have here, vehicle used, business. But because we've now picked up that in certain of our transcripts, this word business is transcribed differently, we also add that variance, vehicle used, bedroom. Now, obviously, this might not make sense if you look at the query, but you know, in the context of your conversations, this is what it means. It means business. And that is what we mean. Transcription accuracy, because we know you're going to find anomalies. You counteract that by including the variances and measuring your query accuracy against your sample of calls that you've checked. Again, I spend a whole hour on this when I go through training, just to make sure that you understand the process behind it. Hope that makes sense, right?
Great stuff, Henriette. As ever, you've done a great job on that. We have another fascinating question which has come in from Taryn Jordan, which I think will be of great interest to everybody on the call today. And her question is, how do you use Callbi for sales verification and compliances? And I know that's something that's just very close to your heart. So if you would just spend a few minutes on sales verification and compliances and how you build queries around that. Over to you.
Perfect. Thanks, Rod. Again, and what I want to say here is if you've got some time, just also to go have a look at, we've already done some webinars looking at sales compliance, but want to bring it back is as long as you can look for an expression of certain things that had to be said or that was not said, you can build a query and flag. So I'm quickly going to show you just very quickly because I've already got some demo queries here. But for sales, remember you are going to have a sales script. Under that script, you're probably also going to have a scorecard. Using your scorecard, you will go in and let's maybe go to the compliance. You will have certain things that the agent is supposed to say. I'm very easy, I'll always use FSP, but I think it's very relevant. Where the agent is supposed to inform that we're an authorized financial services, registered credit provider, etc., all of those things. Once again, you build your query. So what you can then build in your dashboards is either by means of a scorecard, and I'm quickly going to go into the sales scorecards. Here we've pulled together a list using all our compliance queries. Did they inform that calls are recorded? If it's a 0, they didn't. Did they say it's a registered financial services provider? Did they authenticate the customer, etc.? So you will end up with queries for all your checks, and using that, you can either flag your calls where it passed, or you can flag your calls where it failed. And based on that, you can then take the appropriate action. So you can have per call an indication, or per transaction, per lead. You can see where the transaction passed, if you need to pass it on for auto load, or you can then see where somebody needs to contact the customer back to correct information. Again, like I said, we've got quite a lot of more information on this, but that's in a nutshell how you do your sales.
Henriette, just a quick one on that is for everybody on the call, is Callbi can export all of these reports, all the information, all the data in the back end. It pumps it out as CSV into, and you can digest it into any of the downstream systems, Power BI and third-party QA systems, whatever. So we have several clients who have automated many of those downstream systems using the Callbi queries to feed it appropriate data. Back to you, Henriette.
Thanks, Rod. What I'm actually doing, I'm just quickly stopping my share. I just want to show you some client stats, and let me just share the right screen again. Just what we found, and obviously I've removed names or anything to not make it identifiable. But just because the demo environment is based on quite a low sample of calls. But having a look, and Rod, if you can just confirm again, you can see the PDF.
Confirm, see your PDF.
Perfect. Quickly going to show you just some of these queries. Is here we ran the query looking at those silences on calls. This was an inbound environment, and it was looking at about 40,000 calls in a week. We picked up here that on certain days, they lost more than 44 hours worth of time because of silences on calls. Now, this is what sparked the investigation to say, hang on this, because if you think about resourcing, how many agents is it firstly that's impacting bottom line in terms of revenue? But also, we're talking customer experience today. What were these customers doing waiting for someone to speak? So this then sparked the investigation to start looking at what was the reasons for these silences. Looking then also is we got an indication across calls that 40% of their calls had to be transferred. And listening to those, we picked up that on some calls it was 3, 4, 5 transfers per one call coming in. So again, understanding that they could take action either by looking at, is this my process? They can take that back if it's an outsourcer to the client, or they can review internal process to say, this is not working, we need to empower our agents to help our customers, or where there's hold, train the agent or understand the need for the hold. This was a different customer, but we picked up 20% of calls. The customer had to be placed on hold for something. Next one, also just the non-resolution. Again, you can see here, 20%, 15% of your calls, there's going to be a repeat call. And this is then where those call drivers come in, is go look at these calls, but identify the drivers of those calls. What is it that's not being resolved? Because that will help you identify what is it that you need to do to avoid the repeat call. Is it proactive contact campaigns? Is it training your agents? Or what is it that can help you avoid this? The last one was just what I wanted to show, the audio quality or the bad line query, where we picked up 10% of calls. And that's a lot. If you start talking 250,000 calls, 10% of those, there was an issue on the line, which means 10% of their calls could have been avoided because that resulted in a repeat call. So that's just using some actual real stats and not just 100 calls. What I wanted to show you the power of identifying where your customer experience is being impacted.